What's pretty common is you will get a package from China. They come sort of unlabeled. You get these kind of little glass vials with sort of interesting looking powder inside them.
Zara Stone is a culture reporter at the San Francisco Standard, and recently she's been reporting on a new trend in Silicon Valley, injecting non-FDA approved drugs called peptides into your body.
Then you have to go and buy bacteriostatic water. You get a needle, you take out some of the water, you inject it into a bottle, you swizzle it around. Then you get your alcohol swab and you swab, I don't know, your butt or your stomach or, a piece of thigh. You inject the bottle again, pull out the plunger, inject your body. There's a bunch of different steps and people are having to do all of these steps to do it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, you lost me at the bacteriostatic water. I don't even know what that is or where you have to buy this. Are we just talking boil water and you're good or what? These days, there's peptides for just about everything. There's peptides that allegedly improve your focus, peptides that help you lose weight, peptides that help you sleep, peptides that make your muscles recover faster after you work out. But in Silicon Valley, people are taking this thing to a new level. One of your recent articles starts out with the line, I'm going to quote it here, "To the new school tech bro, dying should be optional." That's a wild opener. I mean, are there people who actually think this, that dying should be optional?
Yes. I think they're definitely trying to build a world where either they can replace their body parts so they can live forever, they can freeze themselves so they can be reanimated when the technology evolves, or they can, export their consciousness into the internet and live forever in that way.
The concept of living forever is a constant theme in literature, not to mention specifically science fiction. But I'm not sure that we've ever seen such a strong subculture of influential people who truly believe that it's attainable in their lifetime.
Part of the belief with this comes from sort of AI accelerationism, seeing things that are possible in a shorter time frame than they used to be, and also from some of the new technologies.
Welcome to the culture of what Zara calls Tech Bro 2.0. Whether we like it or not, the tech bros are dragging us along in their pursuit of ever-increasing optimization. So what exactly are they up to? And what's going to trickle down for the rest of us? This is Kill Switch. I'm Dexter Thomas. It used to be when somebody used the word hacking, they specifically meant hacking a computer. And now it's life hacks, which is just things that make your life a little bit more convenient or whatever. But then there's also biohacking or body hacking. That seems to have a lot more play in Silicon Valley right now. How do people talk about that?
I feel like it is so part of the culture that people often aren't using the word biohack. I think things that used to be biohacks have now sort of transformed into the broader wellness culture. Like cold plunges, everyone is doing them. Red light therapy, good for your skin. I think everyone from, moms to 70-year-olds to Silicon Valley is already integrating. And then you have the next level. And I think that's where things start to get really interesting.
So what is that next level?
One part of that next level is injectables. Injectables are mostly peptides, all these different things that you inject into your body, the idea being to have better longevity, better sleep, mental health, physical performance, this whole range of really good benefits that people are hoping for.
Okay, before we get too far into this, let me just do the disclaimer here. Nothing in this episode should be construed as medical advice. You should be talking to your doctor about this. But that's kind of the catch-22 here, because at least in the US, most of this stuff is not approved by the government. So your family physician probably isn't just going to hand you a syringe full of peptides. And anyway, even for a professional, it's pretty hard to keep up with this stuff because there are a lot of peptides. For example, you could inject yourself with something called GHK copper, which is supposed to help your skin repair itself so you could look younger. Or you could stab yourself in the hip with some Salanc to reduce anxiety, allegedly. There's also thymosin for your immune system. I could keep going on and on about this, but I'm not even sure that I'm pronouncing this stuff right.
Some kind of say that some of the peptides help with their depression. Some say that it really helps them gain muscle. And there are some parallels with the bodybuilding world as well. So kind of all these different subcultures sort of feed into peptides.
People who take peptides often claim that they're effective and that they're safe to use because these peptides are naturally occurring in our bodies. What is a peptide and why is everybody talking about this all of a sudden?
So a peptide is a short chain amino acid, which totally get that, like, probably doesn't mean anything. So think of, I mean, it doesn't. It's like a smaller protein, if that's a helpful way to think about it. And these are not new things. These have existed in our body forever, but they haven't always been synthesized or been able to be replicated outside the body. Oxytocin is a peptide. Insulin is a peptide. And I would say peptides got to kind of mainstream consciousness with Ozempic, the GLP skinny shot drug.
Okay, now we're talking about something that everybody's heard of. So Ozempic technically was approved for treating diabetes, and Wegovy is the one that's actually FDA approved for treating obesity. Same molecule, just higher dose and different branding. They're both part of a peptide drug class called GLP-1 receptor agonists. Without getting too in the weeds, that basically means that they can mimic a hormone that we already have in our bodies called GLP-1, which regulates blood sugar levels, hence the application for diabetes. It also tells your brain that you're already full and you don't need to eat anymore, hence the application for obesity. But then there's the off-label use of just injecting yourself to lose a few pounds, which allegedly a lot of Hollywood is doing. And apparently, so is Silicon Valley.
A lot of Bay Area people were taking Ozempic like 2 years before the rest of the world was like, hey, get me some of that. So there's a point where they're connected to the researchers and the longevity people, and they're like, there are benefits to Ozempic beyond being skinny. There's glucose control. There's some studies showing potential benefits on like memory and longevity. And people are microdosing them often in order to get specific benefits they're hoping for.
But like we said earlier, Ozempic is one of the few consumer-facing, government-approved peptides that are on the market.
In the US, apart from GLPs, the majority of peptides people are using, there's no way to access that in any legal way unless you're buying the raw material. Most of these peptides, even when the pharma companies are, legally giving you, are manufactured in China.
Chinese dealers have managed to find ways to get off-market peptides into the US. One way is to sell the peptides as quote-unquote research grade. Sometimes they'll even put a not for human use label on it. So if you happen to use it on a human, like say yourself, that's your responsibility. So how does one find out about these? I mean, do you just Google how to buy peptides and all of a sudden you're on peptides.com?
You order them from a website. There are sketchy websites, there are better websites. You might have a doctor in the US who has kind of done their due diligence, or you might have a doctor who hasn't. I think the real thing is, nobody knows what they're buying, who they're buying from. There's a lot of concern about, I'm okay potentially, taking experimental peptides. I'm not okay with like injecting stuff that isn't the experimental peptides. So this is when you start getting this sort of network of Telegram groups, of WhatsApp channels, of like, shared Slacks where people all kind of pool their resources. The idea is this sort of crowdsourced wisdom can at least advance them further than just, advice from somebody on a podcast.
What is it that makes it so difficult to obtain this stuff from a doctor or a pharmacy?
So some of the peptides, like for instance, a very popular one, BPC-157, which stands for Body Protection Compound, is known to be pretty good, helping muscle recovery, kind of helping after the gym. This used to be something you could legally get in the US till around 2023. You would need a prescription or a compounding pharmacy or functional medicine or whatever. In 2023, there was a bunch of peptides that had been previously distributed that was sort of placed on a watch list where they were like, we think there may be some side effects. We're not sure. We still want people doing this. And suddenly they were no longer available, which, is reasonable. But you also had a massive amount of people who had legally taken this, kept taking them because they'd seen good effects, and then suddenly couldn't access them.
That meant that consumers, including newcomers from the tech world, suddenly had to source their peptides from somewhere else. And because they were no longer FDA approved, there was no straightforward process to ensure the quality or even the quantity of what you're putting in that syringe.
So, with a lot of people, especially the larger groups who are, bulk buying peptides, they're sending it to a bunch of different labs. The kind of the main things they're testing is like one, the quality. Are you getting what you think you're getting? Two, the volume. Because if you think you, I don't know, have a 10 milligram vial, but they've just thrown in 20 milligrams, you're going to give yourself way too high a dose. You can't test it yourself at home. I mean, unless you literally have a lab and are a scientist, you have to mail it away to somebody.
So this stuff is not that easy to get. But not only are we seeing these gray market workarounds, some people are using injectables as office perks. Tell me about Peptide Friday.
So Superpower is a sort of longevity AI concierge company. The idea is that wealthy people have access to concierge doctors who look at all the science, kind of do this whole personalized medicine and suggest things based on their body type. They do a lot of blood tests, they do the on-demand MRIs. A lot of this stuff really isn't accessible to most people, even if you're considered comfortable, this is on another level. So this company is trying to sort of democratize access to all this kind of longevity knowledge through kind of an AI concierge doctor. The company, which very strongly believes in longevity and kind of talks about how, they think they might never have to die. And then you go to the office and the fridge is on this shelf is this guy's stack. He has takes $5,000 worth of injections a month. On another shelf is a different dude's stack. He takes $2,000 worth a month. The employees don't have to take stuff. Many of them do. And in one of the really interesting, kind of encourage people to work from the office, back to work kind of things, they have Peptide Fridays, where if you come in on Friday, you get your bagel and you get your optional peptide shot.
Okay, I had a lot of friends who were working in the startup space in the 2010s. And so, I'd be up in Silicon Valley sometimes. And I remember the ping pong tables. I remember the Nintendo 64s. I remember the arcade machines. Those were the things that they used to use to get people to come into work and stick around at the office. Peptide Fridays is wild. That is a wild perk.
Hey, I mean, you want your peptide shot, you got to be in office.
So you mentioned the price. So hold up. $2,000 a month on peptides, $5,000 a month. I mean, that is double a lot of people's house note, double a lot of people's rent. That's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. But I would also say that these are guys who are doing peptide stacks. So they're not just doing one or two, they're doing a whole bunch of different peptides combined and very regularly. There's the Wolverine stack, which is a couple of different peptides together that is, based on Wolverine, how it it recovers very quickly, nothing can hurt him. Also hot, I guess, is part of that.
The Wolverine stack. Okay. All right.
But also, I would say that a lot of people I spoke to who do peptides regularly maybe pay 100, 200 a month. Something like that, which, is not nothing, but again, is much more reasonable than, the peptide bros who are, taking at that volume.
Hold on. Have you had any of this stuff? Have you tried any of the peptides?
I have tried some. The ones I've tried have been ones given to me by a doctor or by somebody who was being overseen by a doctor. I tried GHKCU. It's a copper peptide that's meant to be really good for the skin. It did nothing but give me a really big bruise, but actually it would never have done anything because you're meant to do it regularly. So doing it once off was, really just for the gram.
Have you talked to anybody in your reporting who has had a bad side effect from this stuff?
I spoke to one person who kind of overestimated, who gave themselves too large a dose, and they had a really bad stomach ache for a day or so. But I haven't actually found anyone who really has had worse side effects than that. I would say the biggest concern is sepsis. And sepsis, again, would be from poor application, not so much from poor quality of the drug.
What happens if you overdose? What happens if you use too much?
I think like you get a stomach ache, you might get very dehydrated. You might need to go on like a sort of IV drip to replace fluids. And this is generally like sort of a generally, unless you have any pre-existing conditions, kind of a worst case scenario.
But keep in mind here that the crowd that Zara's reporting on, the people in Silicon Valley who are taking peptides, have a lot of resources at their disposal to at least reduce the risk of using these off-market peptides that they're taking. Not everyone has that.
I think with some of the kind of the Bay Area techies who are doing peptides and other experimental things, many of them are also doing very frequent blood panels. They are doing DEXA scans. They are, they might be not have a doctor checking in on them, but they are doing all these different things to monitor how the new substances they're taking are affecting their physiology. And, somebody who's like, oh, peptides, I live in Nebraska, might not be doing the same thing. And I think they may be missing something there because, the blood test doesn't make it safe, but it does give you like a measured way to track things that are difficult to track. So I think there's an element of that that might not be obvious.
Just listening to you talk about this, and I wonder how people listening to this will feel. I'm kind of getting the feeling like, oh man, maybe I should be trying some of these things. Is that a common response?
I think it's challenging to talk about it without there being people being intrigued by some of it. I urge people to be cautious and not just buy random shit and stick needles into themselves.
Yeah, that's prudent. Yeah. Whether or not they actually deliver on the promise, peptides are just one part of a larger trend in Silicon Valley. So why is biohacking getting so popular? And what does that mean for the rest of us? Silicon Valley for a while was very stereotyped as being, a bunch of skinny nerds who wore hoodies. And there was this other kind of parallel maybe track of things that men did online, which is here's how to get big and huge and go to the gym, and we're going to watch MMA and all that sort of thing, and we're going to watch sports. And those two didn't really jive together. The skinny computer nerds didn't really like sports, and that was almost kind of like a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't like sports. That's for those meatheads, that's for the jocks. That seems to be kind of dovetailing now.
It has sort of gone, I don't even know if it's full circle, but it's just kind of merged. I mean, I think it's maybe the dude equivalent of like, I can have it all. I can have the computer science degree. I can have the LLM. I can have the muscles. In a way where perhaps you were like, the tropes of nerds versus jocks or whatever has sort of like, faded in a way because people are like, I can have all of these different things and still kind of be a complete person.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably an obvious version of that would be Mark Zuckerberg saying he was trained in MMA. I think. Yeah, I don't think that was a tipping point, but I think that was sort of an obvious sign that, okay, the nerds are going to the gym. Something has changed.
I think there's, a portion of people who are also just doing this to be hotter. Or, optimizing for attractiveness as well. So if they can get skinnier, if their muscles can be bigger, it kind of feeds into the same train of like optimization. If they optimize their looks, they optimize their work, they optimize their sleep. And these are all very kind of interrelated. Sort of a Zuckerberg glow up, is maybe the driver for some of this.
This obsession with optimization might have some deep roots in Silicon Valley, but it's starting to spread out into mainstream culture. And I think there's a pattern here. I mean, think about it. Wearable devices that track your sleep used to be weird. Now they're pretty normal. And think back to our Google Glass episode. Having an always-on computer camera strapped to your face was bizarre.
What? Those nerds can videotape me?
Yeah, it's basically a cell phone on your face.
Did you just take a picture of me?
Yes.
Are you recording me?
Of course I
Stop
am.
recording me.
But society's starting to warm up to that idea. Now you got people running around in Minnesota wearing the new Meta Ray-Bans. It used to be that the most influential people in America were musicians or actors in Hollywood. But Silicon Valley's starting to be another cultural place that people look up to and want to copy. Okay, so if a lot of people in Silicon Valley are into peptides now, is it just a matter of time before the rest of us are injecting stuff also?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's not something I
Really?
would have said yes to before Ozempic. But Ozempic, this global phenomenon, it really normalized injecting yourself with stuff. And I think for that, and that's, not a Silicon Valley thing, that driver of a weight loss industry, the obesity epidemic, that has taken the idea of injecting yourself from something weird and scary to something that people are embracing. So yeah, that tracks with the fact that peptides are going to spread. I think going forwards, there is going to be a lot more flexibility. Like, we have RFK on record saying, he wants kind of the FDA to stop being so anti-peptides and stuff like that.
And we're going to end the war at FDA against alternative medicine.
Thank
the
you.
war on stem cells, the war on chelating drugs, the war on
Peptides.
peptide. If you want to take an experimental drug that, you can do that. You ought to be able to do that.
That's the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the Ultimate Human podcast with Gary Brecka. And this is kind of RFK Jr.'s thing. Back before the election last year, he made a tweet accusing the FDA of suppressing everything from peptides to raw milk to ivermectin. Remember, that was that horse deworming paste that people were trying to take to cure COVID. And he started that tweet with the sentence, quote, "FDA's war on public health is about to end."
So these are all kind of adding up for something, a bigger picture and a bigger sort of rollout or acceptance. It's going to be a couple of years, and then I think it will be like, oh, it's, here's my Weetabix, here is my peptide shot.
Wow. As you're telling me about peptides, it sounds nuts that somebody would just inject themselves on the off chance that maybe their focus will get a little bit better for the afternoon. But maybe not. Maybe it isn't so weird.
We're at the start of something that I think is really going to change, and we have an administration which is maybe being friendlier than ever before to this kind of experimental stuff. So maybe at some point people will be getting this through Walgreens. It might cost more, but at least, the supply chain part of it will be fixed in terms of what you're doing. And I think we're just at the beginning of this, really.
If peptides really do hit the mainstream and live up to the potential that people say is there, the next question is what the existence of this superhuman drug does to us as a society. Are we now getting into yet another permutation of kind of haves and have-nots? And what I mean by that is people who have access to the money to buy these things can get all these benefits where people who don't can't have those benefits.
To some extent, but I would also sort of caveat that with that, prescription drugs are expensive if you don't have insurance. There's a lot of access and income disparity for a whole bunch of people.
Right now, in America, the richest country in the world, millions of people are still struggling to get access to decent quality food. It's hard to imagine that we're going to figure out equal access when it comes to peptides. Just for example, one of the co-founders of that longevity concierge service, Superpower, said in Zara's article, and I'm quoting here, that good health is becoming a status symbol. And to be clear here, I'm not criticizing him. I think that he's correct. I'd say that being healthy has been a status symbol, not in the sense of a Louis Vuitton bag or a Labubu. I mean in the sense that a lot of modern history is us dealing with the fact that good health is something that only people with a certain level of status could even afford. So maybe we're just repeating ourselves here.
I mean, we haven't even told you about pediatric peptides. This is a kind of a small but growing kind of area of people who are seeing the benefits of giving peptides to children. The parents generally have to do the injecting because I think the youngest child I've heard of, was maybe 8 years old. I think this is wild, and I'm kind of struggling to kind of come to terms with some of this. When you're reporting, You're like, okay, yeah, adults are doing whatever. But when you hear children, it sort of takes it to a very different place.
Wow. I hesitate to even ask. What are the benefits that it gives to a child, supposedly?
Well, again, supposedly the ones that are being used more frequently on children are for the, the athletes, the 10-year-old runner or swimmer. So they're getting a lot of the muscle recovery ones.
So who knows, maybe the next step in peptides is a world where some kids can run faster and swim further and get more athletic scholarships. Or they can focus more on homework and get better sleep, or even look more conventionally attractive by being thinner. Meanwhile, other kids don't get that stuff. So one of my side hustles in college was tutoring. And at first I started out with homework tutoring, but I figured out pretty quick that the best money is in SAT tutoring, because rich kids' parents will pay a lot of money to get their kids into a good school. And a lot of the time, that's who I was teaching, rich kids. Sometimes I'd get to teach on the poor side of town. I think the school district had some vouchers or something like that to bring us in, and the idea was that it would help level the playing field. But it always worked out the same way. Those voucher contracts would end halfway through the year, or the company didn't have enough tutors for those specific schools. And meanwhile, the rich kids always got the best environment, the most motivated tutors, and the most support. They got set up for success. Let's say that these peptides really work. Let's say they're 100% safe. Let's say that this is genuinely something that can improve humans' lives. Okay, does everyone get access to that? Or do we wait for it to trickle down to the rest of us while people with status get a head start on their superpowers? And by the way, there is another weird trend happening among the tech bros that Zara told me about. Sperm racing.
First way you're looking at it is like guys are jacking off, putting the sperm into a race course, and people through like microscopic cameras, etc., and also slowed down are like, watching sperm race on a screen as a kind of sport.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to process this. So is this like, were we talking a live event here? What are we talking here?
They sort of broadcast this as a live event, which was a little disingenuous because the way they did it is they filmed it, they took the sperm, they put it in this sort of race course. I think they dyed it slightly different colors so it would show up a certain way in the cinematography. But then they actually, at the live event, they kind of showed the video. People weren't all standing around like a pool table watching sperm weave, around
Right.
it.
We are live in Los Angeles for the world's very first sperm race. 3, 2, 1. And here we go. New entries.
Oh shit, they're going. Who's winning?
Once they enter the chamber, we are live.
You guys ready? Oh!
And look, before anybody asks, I'm just going to make this clear now. We are not going to do an episode about sperm racing, so please do not ask. I like weird subcultures just as much as everybody else, but we got to draw the line somewhere. Anyway, that's it from us. Catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Thank you for checking out another episode of the video version of the Kill Switch podcast. And yes, Kill Switch is a podcast. So I'm going to assume you already hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, and you probably already left a comment, tell me whether or not you're planning on stabbing yourself in the left hip so you can not be depressed anymore. But while you're down there, you can also find the link to listen to the audio version of Kill Switch wherever you listen to your podcasts. And that is down in the description.